welcome everybody who has already joined in to the session and for this webinar, Leadership Through Change. So what we would like to start off by doing is in the chat box that we have, you've got an option, to select all panelists, otherwise all panelists and attendees. So if you can select that and drop in a word of how are we all feeling today? Excited, happy, exhausted. Glad to see that everybody is on a positive note after a long day of work. And I'm sure some of you might be on the other side of the globe and just starting your day. And so I would like to start off, let's start off. So my name's Arati and I'm speaking on behalf of Leadership Tribe. We are a globally accredited agile consulting organization based out of UK. And we provide various services like digital transformation, agile consulting, training, and coaching services for business transformation and sustainable change. And we met Krista a few months ago when she did the agile coaching course, bootcamp course with us. And, we've been learning and working with her since then. She comes from various backgrounds and has a rich history with various corporations. Coaching is her passion, and working with teams to grow in the helping teams to grow in their journeys. And it's not only that, it's also about bringing the change within the teams and also improving the environment around for them is what drives her. And what she likes to describe herself as is that she is a community builder, a catalyst, and a coach, and an expert at bringing the right people together and getting things done, which I find is fabulous. And Krista, I shall pass it over to you to take the session forward.
Thanks so much, Artie, and thanks so much for the opportunity to present to everybody. Thank you for those who are joining us today. I'm coming to you live from London, where we just got the opportunity to see our friends outside and drink a beer with 5 other people, if you prefer wine or spirits or maybe Coca-Cola. But I know the world's a very interesting place right now. And so for today's conversation, I'm hoping you'll ask questions, you'll participate, and you'll let me know what your thoughts are. This is for anyone, whether you're an actual leader today, you're a volunteer leader, you have a team, you're a leader of leaders. Today's conversation really is about how can you be better for your team. So I'm going to jump right in, and the first thing I want to do is I want to start off with a poll. And this is one of my favorite quotes. I follow Simon Sinek. I don't know if you do as well. I find him really inspirational. So I'm going to go ahead and open up a poll, and I'm going to ask if you agree. Do you agree a leader without a title is better than a title without the ability to lead? I'll give you guys a couple seconds to poll in. We're getting some votes in, Artie.
Yes, we are.
All right. I'm going to be honest. I feel like everybody is going to agree with this one, because I feel like if you're on this call, you're already someone who's spending some time on your own self-development. It just got the comment, a leader without a title is better. You know, Karthik, I think sometimes that's true, depending. There's one person who did disagree. I'd be really interested to hear why. If you want to type in the box, we can open that up for conversation later. I think ultimately where I'm going with this, and I'm going to go ahead and end the poll, is that if you have 2 opportunities and you have one person that has the title, but they're not able to excite their people and connect with their people and get the best results, and then you have someone else within the team who doesn't necessarily have a title, but they're helping pull that team along, I think personally I would put a lot of value in that person who doesn't have that title. But I'm going to talk through a little bit more about what it's like to be a different team member and how we can monitor that through change. Today, I'm going to go through 3 different ways to improve how you approach transformation, how you improve your way of leading your team through transformation. So where I want to start is with HR trends, human resource trends, because a lot of my background is in human resources, supported companies through transformation. with those specific processes. And with trends right now that we're seeing in the field, employee engagement, health, well-being, and psychological safety, inclusion and workplace bias, purpose-driven organizations. These are hot ticket items that leaders of large organizations and smaller ones are discussing. Because while we've all been trapped in our houses, we haven't been able to travel, employee well-being and overall happiness has become a pivotal item for all organizations, because if your employees aren't okay, the work doesn't get done. And we don't have the opportunity to see you in person for the most part. So we need to find new and creative ways to make sure that you feel great about the work that you do every day. The other piece of this, though, is we still have to keep the trains arriving on time. Compliance, increasing analytics to drive productivity, having an agile workforce, organizational resilience. Just because we're going through a pandemic doesn't mean that the bottom line dollars don't matter and that the efficiencies aren't still critical to what you're doing every day. So when we talk about these different trends, they always lead to a transformation. But when it comes to transformation, sometimes we forget about how that change impacts the people that we lead or the team that we're a part of every day. And when we take into account the pandemic itself, even though we're past a year of the pandemic, we think about work location and commute. That's changed for a lot of people. For me, I've worked from home, but I did get the opportunity to go out into London and meet with clients. But now I'm in this office day in, day out. And I say office, I mean this studio apartment that I share with my partner. So while he gets to go out every day and work, I'm stuck here all day. And so my manager has to consider, how does that impact my well-being day to day? Job responsibilities have changed. So is family life. If you have kids at home, how are you managing that? What's childcare like? And these are realities. Social connections. Do you have the opportunity to go out and see people at the end of the day? Health. Do you have opportunities to go to the gym? Do you have opportunities to get out and do something different? Are you walking? Are you cycling? Do you have a Peloton in your house now? Life circumstances ultimately have changed for every employee. So, when you're looking at articles that are out there, you think about, what does change do to the employee experience? When we're looking at change, stress, distrust, and intent to quit are directly linked to change at work. So when we're thinking about something as simple as changing how your employees clock in, clock out every day, or how they connect with you every day, even the WebEx Teams or Zoom, for example, can put some people in a negative experience, depending on generations or how they feel about how they look every day, their appearance. Do they need to put on makeup to be on Zoom? Do they feel like they have to have a hat on because they're not proud of how they look? There's a lot of different things that go into how an employee feels every day. And that then can spiral out of control. The other piece of this, as we look at it in the other articles that I've found in our conversation, is, the stress, like we mentioned, in time of coronavirus. So I have this article that I pulled up, and it says, change is inevitable in organizations. And when it happens, leadership often underestimate the impact those changes have on employees. If they damage their relationship with employees, they ratchet up stress levels and create a climate of negativity and cynicism. Managers can wind up undermining the very change efforts that they're trying to promote. So if you have some exciting things that you think are going to change the way your people work, if people are going to come to work every day and they're going to get excited about it. Oh, this is going to make life so much simpler if we put in this new report. Introducing a new report for an employee that's going through all those other change items that we mentioned, while should be positive, could result in a negative experience for your employee. So what I'm hoping to do is discuss today, how can you set your team up for success during times of change? So I'm going to start with you. The most controllable of all controllables is always you. And how you respond and what you think and how you wake up every day and come to work. And so what I want to talk about is 3 different ways for you to put yourself in the best position to be a leader in times of change. 3 G's for leadership through change for any team member. I'm going to talk about grit. I'm going to talk about growth mindset. And I'm going to talk about giving. So let's start off with grit. I want to talk about Okay, help others by helping yourself. I want to change the mindset to say, help yourself by helping others. At the end of this call, I want you to have thought about, am I helping others by helping myself? Or am I helping myself by helping others? So I'm really interested to get your feedback at the end of this call once I give you a couple things to consider. So first things first, this comes from a book called Grit by Angela Duckworth. And she says 4 things that you think about before you quit. This could be your job, it could be a project, it could be, that new diet you tried, the new cycling habit you picked up. 4 things you think about before you quit. I'm bored. When I first started cycling, I'd go out by myself and I'd be like, oh, here we go again, same route, same time, every time. I'm bored. I could quit. The effort isn't worth it. Well, I've been cycling 2 or 3 weeks already. Now, why am I not seeing a change? The effort isn't worth it. It's not making an impact. This isn't important to me. I have other things I could be doing right now. So many other things I could be doing. I could be, watching that new show that I like. That's an immediate gratification. Or I can't do this. I might as well give up. There are so many hills in these parks on my bike. I can't make it up this hill. I should just quit. Anybody else have these similar feelings sometimes, based at work or on a new project? Does it resonate with you? Just looking in the chat, see if other people have anything else they think about before they quit. I got an already, yes, okay. So as we're considering this, I want you to think about this woman. This is Angela Duckworth. Angela grew up in a household where there was a family focused on genius. She had a background, Asian background, where it was most important to be the smartest person ever. You needed to have straight A's, you needed to have top grades, you needed to have the opportunity to be the top student within your school. And Angela was like, I'm not the top student in my school, but I can be the grittiest. And what she's talking about is grit versus talent. And I'm going to talk about what grit means. She's the founder and CEO of Character Lab, which is a nonprofit with the mission to basically advance scientific insights that help children thrive. And it's based off this idea of talent versus grit, and whether or not people who try more are more successful versus people who have that natural talent. She had prior career in research. She had math and science teacher. She was at a public school in New York City, San Francisco, and Philadelphia. But when I was reading her book, and I've referenced the books that I've pulled up this is one story from this book. It's on West Point. And West Point's a US military academy in New York. It has a 10% acceptance rate and an 84% graduation rate. So of 14,000 applications within 1 year, 4,000 of those get nominated by a senior politician within the United States. So a senator, a member of Congress, the vice president of the United States. So those people, of the 14,000, only 4,000 get nominated, which is a requirement to get in. And then 2,500 of those 4,000 pass this vigorous test for fitness. Even if you pass that fitness test, only 1,200 are admitted. So 10% of the 14,000 actually make it in. 1 in 5 will drop out in the 4 years that they're in the program. And a huge chunk of these will drive out in the first 7 weeks of their career at West Point. So of 14,000, you get to a 1 in 5 dropout rate within the first 7 weeks. And it's called the beast. The 7 weeks is the beast. It's most physically and mentally demanding 7 weeks of your military career with the United States from cadet to soldier. 5 a.m., 10 p.m. every day. Wake up 5 a.m. for 7 weeks, go to bed 10 p.m. for 7 weeks. And so what Angela was trying to do is understand, like, why do some people make it and why do some people don't? West Point uses this whole candidate score to assess people that they bring into it. They use SAT scores, which are high school tests that assess you against the rest of the population to say whether or not you're great in certain areas, math, reading, etc. And then what's your talent? What's your rank in school? So what Angela wanted to understand is, what can I ask to better predict whether someone makes it through? And what she came up with is passion and perseverance. And that's what makes up grit. Grit is passion and perseverance for long-term goals. So one way to think about what grit is to consider what it isn't. So it's not talent, it's not luck, it isn't how intensely for the moment you want something. It's a long-term question of, do I want this every day? So grit is about having what some research will call ultimate concern, meaning I wake up every morning and I know my ultimate goal is to be a leader of a team of 10 people within a sales organization, just an example. And you wake up every day and everything that you do at work or everything you do every day in your personal life, you connect to that ultimate concern. You care so much that it organizes and gives meaning to almost everything that you do. So you never quit on the goal because you know everything you're doing is driving to get you there. So I'll give you this link here. It's angeladuckworth.com, grit-scale. It's 10 questions. And it'll let you know where you fall on that grit scale. But how do you measure it? You're going to measure that passion and perseverance. And the higher the grit score you get on that scale, for the specific West Point example, they're less likely to drop out of West Point. They're more likely to get an advanced graduate degree. They're more likely to graduate from community college. There's more examples of how grit pulls in together from the book. But the questions that you answer there do depend on your life circumstances because it's dependent on your perception of your goal at that point in time. So had I taken the quiz when I was 17 and I was like, I'm going to be a veterinarian, that's all I want in life. If I had answered it at 17, my response would have been very different at 21 when I decided to change my goal. Concern is really critical, but it is a way for you to consider what my grit score is in relation to my ultimate goal in life. When we're looking at grit, our potential is only one part of everything. What we do is quite another. So you can be the most talented cellist, for example, a person who plays the cello. But if you don't want to be the best cellist, someone who practices every day very well pass you in their talent they have to play the cello. So what does that mean for you? This is Tina Fey. I'm sure a lot of you know her. She's an actress, she's a comedian, she's a writer, she's a producer, and a playwright. Tina says, it's your work. You should care about it so much that people should get annoyed with you. And I've had this quote on my desk for the entire 9 years that I've been with my current company. And every day I woke up and I would look at it and say, it's my work. I should care about it so much that people get annoyed with me. And I've carried that understanding and thought process similar to what people say is you're a small business owner. You know, small business owners care so much about their work that people get annoyed with them. And that's why they're successful within their career. Tina goes on to talk about in an article in the Business Insider, and I'll actually share the link within the chat if you guys want to read it. I think it's really interesting. But she talks about how her first job coming out of college was working for Second City, which is a comedy group that has produced a lot of the people that go on to do Saturday Night Live. And within that article, she talks about how she only got paid $25 per diem. And that was whether or not they had an event, $25 per diem. So if you think about that, it's $125 a week. Times 4, you're looking at maybe $600 a month, which barely pays rent in the United States. And they got 75 extra if they did a show. Despite the small paychecks, she said that touring with Second City was the best job she's ever had. And it's because she learned a really critical lesson at a young age that many people in her career failed to grasp, which was improvising in front of a paid audience. You learn to be fearless. And she said, you learn how to fail because you mostly fail. And I'm going to repeat that again. You learn how to fail because you mostly fail. You mostly flop. You learn not to be afraid to fail. And I think when it comes to the grit score, right, we go back to the grit score and what that means. When we're looking at grit, it's one thing to say, these are my goals, but it's another thing to go for them. And it's another thing to constantly put yourself in that position to want it every day, no matter what. And so, you know, like I said, this quote is what I wake up every day and I look at. My father's a small business owner, and he taught me to care more about what I do every day than anyone else, including how I fold a blanket or how I put away something so that the details are focused on. And I think that comes down to an overall mindset. So when we're talking about mindset, and we're going to, you know, make our way to our next bubble, and that's a growth mindset. How do you grow your grit? So I have two people here in this photo. I have Marie Kondo and I have Marcus Buckingham. And what do these two people have in common? So Marie Kondo is a Japanese organizational consultant. You may know her from the KonMari method of basically, does this shirt help me find joy? And if it doesn't, I should donate it.
Does it sing to you?
Yeah, seriously. So before I moved to London, it was 3 years ago, I moved to London from Cincinnati, Ohio. And I had all my stuff in a bag and I was looking through it and I had all my friends come over and we went through all my clothes. And I would hold it up and I'm like, does this bring me joy? And if not, thank you, clothes, and I donated it. So I'm glad you're with me, Artie, on this. So she helped me a lot. She wrote actually a business book. She has 4 different books out there, you know, sold millions of copies. And she has her own TV show now. So if you're really interested, you can look up the KonMari method and Marie Kondo. I still try to fold my clothes that way. I'm not always successful. But when we're looking at what she's brought to the table, even with her book, she wants us to find the joy. She wants us to find the joy every day and enjoy the work as a whole. Now, she used to work in business. She went to an office every day in insurance, and every day she would go to work, and she just couldn't understand why she didn't enjoy what she did. And she ended up, the reason why her whole business started was because she helped a coworker organize their office. And the coworker said, I don't know why you don't do this as a profession, because you're so good at it. Marcus Buckingham has another concept. Do you use your strengths every day? So he's worked a long time, focused on what makes great people great and what makes great leaders even better. And he did a lot of surveying with the Gallup company before he started his own company, the Marcus Buckingham Company. And he's a true believer that leaders aren't born, they're made. And that's done through the investment in others, but also the investment in ourselves. And he asked the question of, do you use your strengths today? Did you use a strength today? And if you look at your entire week, do you feel like what makes you amazing, you had the opportunity to use that and contribute it? Because they believe that if you have the opportunity to find joy or to use your strength every day, then you can turn around your perception of how you feel about change and how you feel about your job every day. So when we're looking at what Angela Duckworth presented about how to grow your grit and that overall growth mindset, you find the interest in your work. If you can't change your job right now for financial reasons, or you can't change your personal circumstances, what can you look at from a growth mindset to say, in a positive manner, I can find joy or find an opportunity to use my strength every day? And then put it into practice. Do things better than you did yesterday. I had a demonstration for a client 2 weeks ago, and it was, in my opinion, a mess. Now, if you ask my manager, I'm sure she'd say it went well. But to me, it could have gone better because I wake up every day and I think, how can I be better than I was? And I truly believe that's part of the reason why I've gotten to where I've gotten today is because I'm constantly asking for the feedback. But it didn't start there. I can distinctly remember a conversation that I had, I would say almost 20 years ago now. And I was sitting with a friend of mine and I was like, well, this is just the way I am. And she's like, are you serious right now? What do you mean this is just the way you are? You can't say that. You're not even a full person yet. And I'm laughing at it because, you know, when you're thinking, I'm 18, I'm 21, I'm whatever, you're like, I know who I am. This is who I am. Nothing's changing. But I think the best leaders are those people that wake up every day and they never stop learning and they never stop giving themselves the opportunity to change, to be open to feedback. So when we think about doing things better than you did yesterday, you can focus on your strengths and make them stronger. You don't have to focus on your weaknesses. Be aware of them. But then also say, I'm really great at presenting, or I'm really great at writing, and I'm going to get better at that. And I'm going to put aside 10 minutes every day to improve that area of expertise. You've heard of that 10,000 hour rule. To be an expert, you have to put 10,000 hours into that. I love knitting, but I'm not going to spend 10,000 hours knitting. So I'm never going to be an expert knitter. But there are other things that I may love that I'm going to put a lot of time into. So ask yourself that question: what can I do to find the interest and then practice and be deliberate with my goals? What do I want to be great at? What do I like? What do I think makes me happy? And what can I do to invest time in that so that I can bring that into my work every day? And then ask for that feedback. I'm constantly asking for feedback because I want to know how I can be better. Because I know that if a teammate did not feel positive about an experience, it's not going to get any better unless I understand why. We can't expect things to change or for people to accept the opportunity to change unless we're asking the question, how did that go? How did you feel about it? How can I do better? If this is a team effort, then we have to have the opportunity to reflect. So we talked about grit. We talked about that growth mindset and how to grow our grit. The next piece of this is giving. And I love this photo, particularly because I haven't seen my family in over, I think like 15, 16 months now. And I love Sunday meals with my family. Now they're a little contentious. My dad and I are polar opposites when it comes to politics, but there's something about getting together with your family and having a meal that's amazing. And, you know, when I was thinking about giving, I was thinking about like, what kind of concept do we usually think about giving? And I started like looking through stock photos of like people giving, and you know, it's like the standard, like one person handing something to someone else or a present, but giving is so much more than an object. It's a feeling. It's making someone feel better than they did. It's empowering others. And I think about chefs because I love food. And I think about the best chefs. And if we think about a great chef who cares, not about their reputation, but about the experience of the food they bring to their customers, that's a gift. That chef comes to the table and comes up with a creative idea, and they get joy from putting that in front of you and saying, I hope you enjoy my food. And they're bringing you an experience. You think about those master chef shows. There's like a new one out on Netflix, and there was a team of top chefs who were talking about this food plate, and they said, well, I wanted to make someone feel like they were sitting at my grandma's table in Mexico enjoying the food. And that's a gift. So it's a tremendous source of motivation to have that type of purpose. And that's what that restaurant chef had, how they're seeing it, how they're experiencing it. And the greatest people see their goal as deeply connected to the world beyond themselves. When I thought about being a vet 17 years ago, I wanted to be a vet because I liked animals, and that serviced myself. I now think about coaching and consulting because I feel like I get more joy about helping people fix problems, helping people get better at what they do. Everyone has a fine line of what drives them and what helps them feel great every day. So how can you take everything you learn about yourself, put those grit ideas into place, take that growth mindset, and then give to get in return? I read a book, I would say about 10 years ago, 15 years ago. It was written by Steve Farber. Steve Farber's got a couple different books out there, but he's got one about love at the moment, actually, love and sales. But this one is actually called Greater Than Yourself. And I read it right before I started at my current company. And the concept of this is that, you know, you can expand yourself, your own perspective, what you're great at, what you can do to be even better. But then you can give yourself, find someone you trust, that you believe in, that you can benefit from your gifts, who has the drive to be better, and invest in them, that you care about, and help them be great, and expect nothing in return but just to give. Some people call this a mentee, some people call this a coachee, but if you're constantly giving, it comes back to you. And what we have in every opportunity, in every moment, in every situation where we encounter someone else, we have the opportunity to give our talent, time, knowledge, contacts, whatever resources we have, to other worthy people in our lives at work and at home. And that's Kat Cassidy. Charles Rowland said, each human being is faced individually with the challenge of placing others above yourself. Today, your job is to extend and offer yourself to another with the express purpose of elevating that person above yourself. So when I look at this, I think the we is greater than the me. And when we've gone through this pandemic, you know, I have a women's book club that I run out of London. It's a global women's book club called the Women's Literary Collective. I'll drop it in the chat box if you're interested in learning more about it, even if you're a man and just want to keep track of our books and what we're reading. But what I learned from that group is, like, together we're stronger. As an individual, when you only focus on you miss the opportunity to support other people, and you miss the opportunity for them to support you. So today you can practice greater than yourself, which is GTY. You can say, how are you wisely placing others ahead of yourself today? I'm not saying don't take care of yourself. No one can pour from an empty cup. You know, I have my glass of water, right? If the cup's empty, I got nothing left to give. So I need to focus on myself. And then I need to give that opportunity to give to someone else and hope that they'll give back in return. And if they don't, that's okay. I then need to think about, how do I give them to give to someone else? It's not self-sacrifice to the point of burnout, but if we all shared the love by thinking beyond our own needs, the world would be better. And I know that's really high level. It's a lofty goal, but I believe in it. And I think a lot of the people that I just shared with you today believe in it as well. So I want to talk to you about another book that I read recently called, it's called Give and Take by Adam Grant. And Adam Grant is a popular writer and podcaster. And he talks about the differences in people. So there's givers, so people who give, there's takers, and then there's matchers. So when we're talking about takers, it's those people who have the ability to connect with people, but their end goal is ultimately always to serve themselves. Then you have givers, who are people who are ultimately always giving because they have the group in mind. And then you have matchers, who will mimic whoever they interact. So if someone's a taker, they'll be a taker in return. If they're a giver, they'll be a giver in return. And from the science that Adam has, he's followed a lot of different people, but Frank Flynn was a Stanford professor who studied engineers. And he had those engineers in San Francisco's Bay Area rate on how much they gave or received help from other fellow engineers. And they rated each other, and how much did you spend with this person, and did they give or did you receive help from them? And the givers always resulted in getting more and everyone being better together. So if someone was a giver, they were listed as someone who always gave. They also always received. And I know that seems really backwards, but really when you give, it's also a bystander effect. For a bystander, if you stand there and nobody else does anything, then nobody else is going to do anything either. But if one person steps forward to try to make a change, it inspires others to do the same. It's proven that givers see consistent success. Giving equals my works makes a difference. So when you're giving, you get back the endorphins of giving, and it makes you feel better about the work that you're doing every day. For me, I've been in sales, for example, for a long time. And when I think about what I do every day at work, the work can become monotonous to me. But what drives me is feeling like I'm giving back to my fellow teammates, because it gives me something in return. I'm like, oh, I feel good that I shared that knowledge with someone else. I'm glad that someone else can benefit from that. And I feel like I'm getting more by doing that. So as we think about giving, takers, they kiss up, they kick down. So what kissers, they kiss up, meaning someone at their level or higher, it'll be a really positive experience. But they're gonna, even the waiter that they're working with at the table, you won't see a very positive experience between a taker and a waiter, unless they expect to get something in return from that individual. Givers have higher productivity, and they're revered by their peers. So to look at this in a little bit more detail, they had a research on a couple of top performers within different teams. And they followed these performers. There's one on cardiologists, actually, cardiac surgeons. And there's another one on analysts. And they followed the cardiac surgeons around this city, and they said, where do they perform the best? And they also tracked analysts. So there's a star performing analyst at this company. What happens if they leave and go to another? Are they still as successful? Or does a cardiac surgeon progressively get better, or are they more successful at a certain location? And what they found as a defining factor is the star relies on their colleagues to be better. The defining factor is that they surround themselves with other star players who contribute to making each other better. They learn from each other's methods. They learn how to work together. That doctor knows that this nurse is going to give him that scalpel at this time because they have a rhythm. So when you bring great people together, you find a rhythm where it's give and take, and you make each other stronger, and you rely on each other for innovation. Frank Lloyd Wright, for example, is another example that Adam Grant uses in his book. He talks about how Frank Lloyd Wright, who did the famous waterfall house, when he was presenting that opportunity, he had a lot of interns working with him. And at one point he became a recluse, and that's when we saw his productivity and his value really dip, because Frank Lloyd Wright thrived off groups and the collaboration that came from that and the innovation that came from that. Ultimately, together they were better. New information, new ideas. So the last piece of this is the hope piece. I'm a latecomer to Karate Kid. If you've seen Karate Kid, please do put that in the chat box. But I just started watching it because my partner really liked the new rendition of, and can someone help me? I'm sure they can ping it in the box of the remake that came out on Netflix. Artie, do you know what I'm talking about? What's that remake?
I have seen the one with Will Smith's son in it.
Yeah,
that's the only one which I.
They just came out with
Cobra Kai.
Cobra Kai. Thank you. Yes, Cobra Kai. So Cobra Kai, right? I've never seen this, and my partner comes home and he's like, I really need to watch this. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe we're watching a remake of Karate Kid. And then I started watching it and I got really into it. Adela's like, worst series ever. That's funny. I'm glad you said that. I got into it. I don't know why. I think there's definitely some teen drama in there for sure. But it made me want to go back and watch Karate Kid because I'd never seen it. And I love Mr. Miyagi. I think he's great. I think he's like my favorite part of the whole series. I feel like Mr. Miyagi inspires hope for Daniel's son. So this is Daniel's son. His real name's Daniel, but Mr. Miyagi calls him Daniel's son. And Daniel's son has a lot of different things that were going on at one point in his life as a young kid. And he learns karate with Mr. Miyagi. And, I don't know if they say specifically this Japanese proverb, but, the idea came out of this was you fall 7, you rise 8. And when you're thinking about failing forward and everything that we just discussed here, when you're leading a team, you log out at the end of the day and you think, wow, that didn't go well. Or I'm really not getting through to so-and-so. Everything you do every day is not in a vacuum. No matter what role you're in, as an individual contributor or not, you impact other people. You see other people, whether you have to interact with legal, you need help from finance, you need help from product. You're never an individual alone, even if you're not a leader. And looking at yourself and how you come to work every day is important. The other piece is, if you give hope to others, it's easier to give hope to yourself. If you get back up, your grit prevails. And in Daniel's story, at one point, he's in a competition and he gets whacked around to the point where he's like, I can't do this. And at one point, Mr. Miyagi's like, get up. And he found the hope from the inspiration of Mr. Miyagi. And he goes on to then find it for himself, right? But I think that's why it's so important to think about, that person that you want to give to. Because sometimes we're not strong enough to do it on our own. Sometimes we need those mentors, those sponsors, those people that help us every day. Because even if you're a leader, you need support from others to back you up, because you can't go to your team and say, hey, I'm struggling. You go to someone else and you get that support and you find that hope, and then you pass that hope on to your team. So as we look at this, how can you set your team up for success during times of change? Grit. Find interest. Find that thing that sparks joy. Find that thing that allows you to use your strengths every day. Practice it. Find different ways to practice it so that you get better and better every day, and that brings joy to your work. Have that growth mindset. Look for reflection. Look for feedback. And ultimately give, because it's going to help you find purpose in your work every day. With all of that, that gives you a little bit more hope when it comes to impacting that transformation project. Many of you have the skills. You're product managers, you're project managers, you do agile, you're a leader already. But when you're going through change, it can throw you off to the point where you don't remember how to use the skills that are at your disposal, what's in your toolkit. And you forget how to put that into action because the emotions are running high. So what I encourage you to do is to think about, what are these various pieces that I can bring to myself every day? How am I setting aside time so that I'm investing in myself so that I can give to others? You can't pour from an empty cup. The last piece of this, and some of the things that I wanted to share is, from an enterprise coach perspective, what I mentioned about having that support system is that feedback loop. You may have that in some great mentors who understand your work. I'm looking at making, another career change because I'll be leaving London soon. And in some instances, I think about, who should I discuss this specific question I have? And, I don't have family who have gone to the extent that I have in a corporate career. So I can't call my family and ask these questions. So it has been really important for me to network and find individuals who believe in me and who are willing to pour into me, so that I know that I have the support I need when I have a challenging question. Last night, I picked up the phone and I called a previous senior leader and I talked through, here's my circumstances and here's my question. And that gave me that feedback loop. We also need that at work. When we're putting together a new project or a new transformation, as a leader, you're expected, whether or not it's fair, to know all the answers. And you know that you don't know all the answers. So you become really good at deflecting so that you can go back and ask those questions later. But that also gives you the opportunity to get the feedback loop and say, hey, from an enterprise coach, we're approaching this project. You know all my different work streams. What are your thoughts on this? How can I approach this? And as a coach, it's not my job to give you the answers. It's my job to listen and ask more questions, because you already know the answer. You just need an opportunity to voice it and talk it through. A consultant will actually give you advice, but from a coaching perspective, it does give you the opportunity to talk it through. Another piece of this is that it gives you some structure, right? So if you're considering doing these projects, you don't feel strong enough to go it alone, perhaps you enlist an enterprise coach for a short period of time. And you say, hey, here's someone that I can bounce some ideas off of. Even if you're a small business, it gives you big picture success. I've worked with a couple clients recently where they were launching highly capable, really effective health coaches, actually, both of them. And they came to me and they said, I just need a little bit of structure. And I need to know what's my big picture success here. What am I going for? So, I'll stop here. I think for our conversation today, my goal really was to just inspire hope for you. When you're looking at change overall, I hope what you'll do is look at how you're bringing yourself to work every day and how you can invest in those 3 G's, the grit, the growth mindset, and the give, to then ultimately empower your teams to prepare for change. I referenced a lot of books today. They're here within my slide here today. So Angela Duckworth and Grit, Give and Take by Adam Grant, Greater Than Yourself by Steve Barber, Start with Why. I didn't specifically reference this, but I do think it should be in everyone's toolkit, because if you don't know how to answer what your why is, all of this doesn't matter. So I would pick up Start with Why, and what is it that we're trying to achieve, and what do you ultimately want to achieve? Standout 2.0, Marcus Buckingham has a number of books out there, including the 9 Lies About Work, but Standout 2.0 speaks specifically to the strengths focus that we talked about today, and then Joy at Work by Marie Kondo. So if you have an opportunity, I would pick up some of these books and take a look. But before we go and talk about closing it up, I do want to open it up for questions. But first, I want to thank you for being a part of the conversation. But Artie, at this point, I kind of want to open it up and see if anybody who's joined us today has any questions or comments or thoughts.
Definitely, Krista. We can give the audience the floor here to ask any questions that they have.
Sure. So if anybody wants to raise their hand, or they want to share a comment, or they've used one of the concepts that we brought up, by all means. And I'm just going to pull up that slide so that we have it in front of us.
Thank you, Adela, for that.
Thanks, Adela. I really appreciate that. Thanks, Marwayne. Even if Adela and I don't agree on Cobra Kai. What is a fixed mindset? A fixed mindset is, for lack of a better word, a very narrow frame. It's thinking this is the only way we can do this. My glass is always going to be half empty. I'm not going to be able to change what Artie believes about this project, or my manager won't hear me out, or I don't think we'll ever get this specific goal done because the team just doesn't seem motivated. Those are just examples, Karthik, and that's just some ways for you to look at it. My suggestion in those situations is to take a step back, and that's where those coaching opportunities really come into play. I think when we're only talking to ourselves in our negative mindset, we get going on a spiel. Thanks, Kashika. When we go through these opportunities, we sit there and we can get really wrapped up in what could go wrong. And I think when we're talking about a growth mindset, we need to stop and think about what could go right and what can I do as a plan B, C, D, E, F, G, etc., to make sure that we can get this done. Does that answer your question, Karthik?